This is the Impossible Podcast, an exploration of stories that broke convention, set new standards, smashed glass ceilings, and redefined the notion of what's possible.
Hi guys, Ashley Miles here. Welcome back to the Impossible Podcast.
Hey guys, Megan here. Thanks so much for joining us in Impossible once again. We had such an amazing season one. We decided we would do a little recap. I don't know about you guys, but every time we listen to one of these episodes, we learn something more and there's a lot to digest. So we thought that we would go through some of our favorite moments, our amazing guests that we had this season, and just dissect some of the key learnings to be sure that, you know, we're extracting everything that we can from these incredible people and sharing it with all of you. So thanks so much for joining. It's going to be fun.
All right, let's now tune into Ashley Longshore, episode 2, Weirdness is Your Superpower. Ashley is a dear friend of mine for many years. Her business is out of New Orleans, Louisiana. She's from Montgomery. She has built a mega empire in the art world, known for her pop art, her Audrey Hepburns, her incredible worldly art that is collected from celebrity collectors all over the world.
I wake up in the morning and I tell myself all the reasons why I can do something. I don't think about why I don't look like Giselle. I don't think about, why my paintings don't sell for $15 million like Jeff Koons. I don't compare myself to anyone else. They are so right when they say that is the thief of joy. You cannot compare yourself to anybody else because you are an incredible, unique, authentic, amazing individual, exactly as you are. And if you embrace that and love that, let me tell you something, honey, when you step out of an SUV in New York City and you walk into a big conference room and there's 15 executives sitting there and I got to turn it up and be me, baby, I woke up like that. You know what I mean? I'm ready because I believe.
I mean, honestly, I wish that was my get up every morning hype girl that I had beside my bed so I could start every single day, because her belief that she has in who she is just so strong. And I think, not to generalize, but I think specifically as women, we struggled with that. Like, I've had a difficult time with that at different times. You have a lot of self-doubt. You might question yourself. You have doubters around you. You have people who are maybe spewing things at you that aren't the most constructive or positive or uplifting. And it's amazing. All of these guests on our show always have this really strong sense of resilience. But for her to have the power just to say that to herself, and I think the courage to say that to herself and the practice of constantly uplifting her spirit, herself, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody who's as powerful at that as Ashley Longshore is.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, to your point, Ashley is her own inner coach. She doesn't need outside validation in order to live her best life and be successful in her career. She wakes up and coaches herself each and every day, which is incredibly powerful because I think it's our nature to need outside validation in order to take steps forward. And Ashley has trained herself out of that. The other thing is Ashley is one of the most driven individuals I've ever known. Her consistent work ethic and chipping away at her goals is a fundamental reason why she is who she is today in her career. It's consistent. It's filled with energy, positive energy, inner coaching, and really pushing herself to achieve her goals.
And I think what we've learned, Ashley, through her and other guests is that to achieve the impossible, naturally, you're going to be going up against some forces. You're going to have people who are saying, you'll never do that. Or, of course, projecting their own beliefs onto you. So who would believe that at the age and place that she was going to become the absolute sensation that she's become today? As many of the guests that we've had on the show have endured. They've gone from these circumstances where it's almost unbelievable that they could achieve what they achieved in their life. So how liberating for her to detach herself from the need to have other people say, I believe in you. And I think it teaches all of us that if you're going to achieve the impossible truly, we might have mentors along the way. You might have somebody who's able to coach and cheer you on. But in those times when you don't, you have to be that for you.
The other thing about Ashley is she really broke the mold for what an artist is in our modern day world. She is, she works independently, sells her art independently through Instagram and her storefront. And she decided not to work with galleries and give up 50% of her salary. She really was one of the first artists to truly become a sensation by leveraging Instagram and social media in new and interesting ways. So I think it's a great example of just because things have been done a certain way for so long doesn't mean they have to be that way now. You can change it up. You can do things differently. And because of that, she has become a true successful business entrepreneur.
And imagine, Ashley, if she was trying to appease other people in that journey, she never would have gotten to the authentic place that she is in today as an artist. So I feel like every single day she reminds us, you have to embrace who you are. You have to stay true to who you are authentically, and you have to be your own champion.
Let's now tune in to Anastasia Soare, beauty mogul, my dear friend for many years. Her episode is called The Anastasia Beverly Hills Story, and she shares everything from early stages, building her business, to the multi-billion-dollar beauty empire she has created today.
They knew that something was different. And I start telling them that is the eyebrows. And slowly I start kind of convincing my client to let me shape their eyebrows. I mean, it took time, months, days, weeks. And I wanted really to do this as a service. So I went to the owner. They didn't believe in that. And to make the story short, I rented a room in a salon in Beverly Hills, and I started doing eyebrows as well. By 94, I was so busy. I mean, it was very scary, don't get me wrong, at the beginning, because I had the job, like at least a steady job that I would have a salary. And to just a year and a half into being in Los Angeles, I decided to open my own business. Was kind of crazy. My husband thought I am crazy. All the friends and everybody that I knew thought that I'm absolutely crazy. I'm talking about 1992, when eyebrows was not a thing in United States. And I remember my mother I said, Mom, I want to open my own business. And she said to me, well, I know it's scary, but what do you have to lose? You could go back and get another job as an esthetician. So she was the one that always encouraged me. And this is what I did. I rented the room, a tiny little room, and I started doing the service. And by 94, I was working like 6-7 days a week, 18 hours a day. By 94, it became the best kept secret in Hollywood among celebrities and people, that agents, PR people, and so forth.
What I love about, Anastasia, and she's been a friend for a very long time, is she found her swim lane. She found a way to match a passion area, something that she was naturally good at, which was eyebrows. Who would have thought? The eyebrow queen. And she honed it and went all in and put all of her eggs in one basket, which was eyebrows. And she became the very best at that one specific thing. And she became known for something that was unique to her, that also filled the white space of a specific sector in the beauty industry. And she played to win in eyebrows. And look at her now, multi-billion-dollar beauty business.
Absolutely. And I think, Ash, if we consider some of the most incredible success stories that we've seen in business or in music or in film or otherwise, there are people who believed in what they saw. They saw something in the marketplace or knew something that was unique to their own perspective, and maybe not so much. Like maybe there's many other people who are feeling the same thing. But if you think of Spanx, and you think of what she's done, you think of what Jeff Bezos has done with Amazon. I mean, they found something that they knew was a problem for them. They focused on it, and then they evangelized that, despite the people around them sometimes being like, wait, is that a thing? I mean, she is legitimately the reason why all of us consider that, I think, so much today. They're like, eyebrow culture is a very, very real thing. And, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say that she was really the godmother of that cultural sensation.
The other thing about Anastasia is she really was one of the first beauty companies, or really brands in general, to tap into influencers in a super organic way. So really dipping into her audience and listening to what her beauty enthusiasts, her customers were saying and thinking, and really building products based on what they were telling her in real time during early day social media. So again, being a pioneer, finding the white space, being scrappy. These are all of the words I would use to describe Anastasia and why she's so successful. But the other thing is, Anastasia is a risk taker, right? Like the fact that she is, came to this country and found her niche, but then decided, hey, I need to build an actual storefront in Beverly Hills and really, put herself out there. What I love about her is I'm sure she has fears, but she does a really good job pushing through fear in order to find success.
And it's another lesson in betting on yourself. I mean, I think we've heard so many people through this process, despite being told that maybe they wouldn't achieve that, or they were crazy, or a million other reasons why they couldn't do what they did. She was somebody who just stuck to that regardless of the noise that she had around her. And she trusted the fact that she had this instinct. She knew that she had seen this work, in terms of beauty trends in other parts of the world. And she brought that to America and has been the person who has now really globalized that all around the world.
The other thing about Anastasia that I think has been a core part of why she's so successful in business and in life is her love for family, right? This has been a family business from the start. She is still so incredibly close to her mother, who was a big part of her launching this business. She worked with her mother as a child in many different ways. And then also Anastasia's daughter is a fundamental part of the business and the success of the business today. So I know from my relationship with Anastasia how important her family is to her, not only in her personal life, but really making it a family business, which I can relate to as founder of Franklyn West and working with my husband in this way, and the impact that that has on the kids and the clients. And it's just so very meaningful. And Anastasia really taught me that.
And I think it goes back to surrounding yourself with the champions that you do have and the people that you trust, and going back to them when you need a source of rejuvenation or maybe to be re-energized. Because I think that's something that we definitely learned from all of our guests is maybe it was spirituality, maybe it was family, maybe it was fitness or faith. All of them had something that they relied on to sort of juice them up and give them energy again. So I can only imagine, with the pace of her life and the incredible growth that she had, just to have that circle around her must be such a massive reason for her success today.
I think another thing that really inspires me about Anastasia is, and this comes from my trip with her to Paris, is her love of learning and her curious spirit. So I watched her tour the museums and tour the different, architectural moments and properties throughout Paris. And she's constantly asking questions, thinking about things, taking notes. So that's clearly outside of the eyebrow business, beauty community, right? And it's just, she's always looking for inspiration everywhere. And I know her love of travel and architecture and learning plays a huge part in her success with beauty.
Absolutely. And you think about the relationship between how she described architecture and how she figured out how the eyebrow should look on the face. I mean, that was a direct correlation between those two things. So I think we've really learned from a lot of guests, Ash, that learning comes from a place of humility. And if you're a constant student and you're constantly willing to learn and reevaluate and maybe question your own ideas, but still believe in the heart and core of what you're doing, that is such a key component of success. And I think we heard that time and time again of people saying, I listen to my audience, I reconnect with my audience, I listen to consumers, and they're constantly willing to go back to the well and go back to the audience that they're speaking to or dealing with, and be willing to listen and learn. Next, we're going to take a look at Kevin Weeks' episode, Trouble Makes the Trail. It's our 5th episode. I mean, my goodness, what can I say about Kevin? He is amazing. I'm so blessed to have him as my partner in business and in life. And, Kev has such an amazing story. He comes from Bajan immigrant parents, and he learned about hockey at 5 years old in Toronto. He decided that he wanted to be a goalie at 5 years old. And he cut out his first goalie pads from couch cushions that he found in the street and used a margarine container as his first glove. And Kev just decided at that age that he wanted to go to the NHL. He drew a little NHL logo on his kindergarten book and presented it to his parents and convinced them to get behind him. And they're two of the most supportive people you can even imagine. They worked job after job after job, supporting his career on the come up. And he got drafted and made the league and ended up dressing for over 800 games in the NHL. After that, of course, because he's driven beyond measure, he decided that he wanted to pursue television, and he became the first ever Black hockey broadcaster in NHL history. Today, Kevin is truly a force to be reckoned with in sports television. He's an incredible broadcast talent that works for ESPN, NHL Network. He's been featured on Good Morning America and the Today Show and every major broadcast platform you can imagine. So he taught us so much in this episode. He teaches me so much every single day. And just take a look at this clip.
You're Black. You're going to play hockey. It's not going to happen. How can you even think you're going to do that? Why are you wasting your time? Why aren't you running track? Why aren't you playing basketball more? Why aren't you playing football? Those are sports where you have an opportunity. And quite frankly, as I said, what was wild about that is that's for people, again, that look like me and for people that didn't, that felt that way. And it never, ever, ever occurred to me the fact that as a youngster, there were only 50 to 60 NHL goalies in the world. I never thought about that. And as I got older, I never thought about that. All I knew was I was going to freaking get there and I was going to make it and I was going to be there.
I have to say, I feel blessed every single day to have Kev as a part of my life, both as a business partner, but a life partner. And the conviction that he expressed in that video, I see every single day. And it's an incredible lesson and gift that he's given to me. Is I knew that I was driven, Ashley, when I was growing up. I've always been very, very driven. Kev is one of the only people that I think I've ever met that outdrives me. And when he sets his mind to something and he makes a decision, as he just described in that video, regardless of what happens, and I have seen him face doubt, scrutiny, media, racism, all the above, he will just plow through all of that. And I think at the sort of normal time where most people would say, okay, I'm done, Kev always does 50 to 60% past that line. And it's been incredible to watch him navigate his life that way. And it's a massive, massive reason for his success.
I couldn't agree more. When I think of Kevin, I think of determination and grit. I mean, this guy is so determined. He's so consistent, and he's such an entrepreneur at heart. I mean, I know his, roots are in sports and hockey, but this guy is a business entrepreneur, wildly successful. And I see, just knowing Kevin and knowing you together, I see his athletic ability and what he's done through sports to get where he got with sports. I see how he translates that into his business decisions and his career, which I think is fascinating. And as a mother, it makes me want to put my kids in all the sports because, I just think there's so many things you learn as a young athlete and an established athlete that can relate to your career and business success. But the other thing is, I just feel so blessed to know you and Kevin as a couple, a powerhouse couple. I was with you the night you were engaged, and I saw how you both can go from driven career mode, business mode, into the most loving and delicious couple. And just the way that you two show up for each other is just the reason why you have such a successful life is you show up in full no matter what your goals are.
Oh, Ash, I can't thank you enough for that. And we are so blessed to have you as a part of our circle and feel just the same about you. Just to have champions around you is such a blessing. And it's been amazing to just watch Kevin, learn from him. And we've got a really great partnership, but also our independence is something that's really important in our relationship as well. I think if you're living with a driven person, or you're in a relationship with a driven person, it's really important to feel like there's freedom to express that. And I think that's something that I've learned from Kev, and I've learned from being in a relationship with Kev, that it's so important to find the right partner so that you're able to feel like you can express who you are in full and never feel held back from doing so. For Kev and I, there's no idea that is too big. There's no ambition that is too big. And it's so, I would say, energizing and rewarding and rejuvenating to be able to come home after what might be a challenging day and be able to get counsel from somebody that is such a huge part of your life. So I not only rely on him greatly as a partner, but I look up to him and I learn from him every single day. And this episode was no exception.
And I agree. Kevin is someone you want on your team. You want him in your circle. You want him on your board of advisors. I mean, I have called Kev during the most difficult times and setbacks in my own life and career. And he was this calm, trusted sounding board that seemed to have seen it all. Like, my situation didn't surprise him, and he was able to calmly and positively guide me in a better direction, which is a great example of, in order to be successful in business and in life, you got to surround yourself with the best people. And I feel so lucky to have you and Kevin in my personal tribe, in it together. And Kevin's just such a great friend and partner.
And us too, Ash. And the other thing that I would say about Kev is, it's humbling to know the level of difficulty that he's faced. There are times when I'll come home and say, like, I've had such a crappy day. And when I think of what he endured in terms of racism or difficulty, I mean, he's been supporting family members since he was 18 years old and enduring so much racism through his track and injuries, physical trauma, moving from team to team, breaking racial barriers. He's the first ever Black broadcaster in history. And what he shouldered through that process and his ability to still give back to the community while enduring so much pain, it's humbling for me. And I think listening to all of the stories that we've had through this program, it reminds us sometimes what a really hard day actually is. And challenge is just a part of the journey. It just is. But I always think of Kev when I go through a difficult situation that, might feel like, oh, this is the worst. I always think of him and his ability to continue to endure, and it motivates me. And it's a really big part of the reason why we launched this whole platform, is because we knew of Kevin's story and other people's stories, and we didn't feel like it was shared openly what the real journey was. And so we hope that through his story and the stories of the other folks who have so generously shared their wisdom and their path with us, that we hope that all of you can learn that the adversity is just part of it. It's really, really, truly how you respond to it, how you deal with it, and your ability to pop back up like one of those little dolls. Like, I think it was Sally Sussman who said that. So it's a great motivator for all of us.
And to remember that what you see on Instagram and your feed every day is the very best of what people have to offer. It's the very best with the filters and with the captions. But we hope that through the Impossible podcast, we're sharing that these are some of the most successful people in the world. But guess what? Here are their real and raw stories. Here's the truth behind the curtain. Here's the truth behind the curtain. Tune in, everyone, to Rebecca Minkoff, episode 9, Figuring It Out the Rebecca Minkoff Way. And she is, an incredible global fashion designer, amazing woman, mother of 3, wife, business powerhouse. And the most incredible thing about this episode for me is the way Rebecca represents adaptability and resilience. Her strength is unbelievable. The way that she pivots during hard times and turns challenging situations into successful new beginnings.
Next season's production to COVID, right? 70% of our business sheared off a cliff. And we literally just had our website and we survived and we turned our business around. But to go through, what so many companies went through and deal with the fallout of that was incredibly scary. I think my techniques for dealing with that is, those dolls that you punch and they get back up. You have to adopt a mindset of that really hurt. I can't breathe. I'm going to get back up. And that muscle, I think, gets stronger the more you utilize it. There's always a solution. Always. Doesn't mean it's the solution you want, but there always is an answer to it. And maybe it's, again, the road is not straight. So you have to be willing to let it take you sometimes off road and on a new path. We were just exploring something yesterday that I was like, man, I worked 20 years for this to be the outcome. That is disappointing. And then I said, well, you know what? I'm going to make the best of it. And then something changed within an hour and we were back on the road. And so I think that you just have to sign up knowing that and then be willing to just keep getting back up. And I say this in my book, sometimes success is just being able to keep going or being the last man standing,
I love her. I mean, I've known Rebecca a long time. And if there was one word I would use to describe Rebecca Minkoff, it's adaptable. This woman, you put her in any situation. When times get tough or the business needs to pivot, she's going to be the first one to embrace a challenging opportunity and turn it into magic. She's one of the most adaptable people I know.
I think what's so cool, Ash, is so many of the guests that we've had have brought who they are as people and who they are in terms of their career to their approach to their life. So when we think of Rebecca Minkoff as a designer, she designs her life. She's so creative in how she approaches her life. Ashley Longshore is an artist and she's orchestrating her life. Kev, as an athlete, is taking that approach to sports into every single day that he lives. And I think we've seen that repeat itself over and over again. You can see Rebecca's creativity in every decision that she makes in business. It was so cool to see because I've met her a few times and known her through great friends like yourself. But it was amazing to see her creativity and strength and power as a designer really get sort of transplanted into how she lives and designs her life every day.
I know. I couldn't agree more. And I think with all of our guests, that common theme is they're bold visionaries, but they don't just dream. They have a plan and work ethic to back it up, to make things happen, to make big things happen. And Rebecca is such a visionary. And she's really broken the mold of what a fashion brand could be. I think she was one of the first designers to have real life influencers, real people do her runway walk. I mean, at a time when everyone was using models, like that's just how she thinks. And I'll never forget one of my visits to Vegas for CES, the technology show. Rebecca was walking the halls, identifying all the latest technologies and how technology can become a part of her handbag collections. And this is at a time when no other fashion designer was doing that. So I just love that about her.
Yeah, she's a total genius. And she's also the second person in our show to mention the doll that gets knocked down. I think her and Sally both bring that up. And so I think that's such a humbling lesson for every person who's tuned into this content is there will be times when you get knocked down. That's every single person that we've spoken to has described that exact experience. And the determining factor of whether or not you're successful is if you get back up. It's not the fact that you're getting doubted and you're getting knocked around. It is the fact that you're willing to get back up when those moments happen and that you don't concede and, give in to the pain and torture or sometimes what the journey is and just say, okay, I'm done.
Let's break that down into practical sense, right? Like when do we get knocked down? Maybe we get looked over for a specific job promotion. Maybe we actually get fired, right? And what is that? How are you turning rejection into redirection? Maybe you're in the wrong industry, or maybe you're in the wrong position at your company. Sometimes these things happen for a reason. In fact, I think most of the time, any kind of rejection or setback is happening in our lives for a reason, to set us on a new path. But boy, is it painful when you're experiencing that setback. And that's when our self-doubt and inner critic, I know, can creep in. But how do we actually take a pause to say, this is happening for a reason? And what is my new path forward? And years later or months later, you start to see it and connect the dots as to why that instance happened. Right, Megan? I mean, do you have an example of maybe a setback and how you pivoted from that setback?
Oh my goodness. I have so many personally, Ashley, many times where I dealt with rejection or difficulty when I was coming up in my career. I would say specifically, I had a time where I was really directly targeted by a coworker who stole a bunch of my information and spread it around my entire company because he was angry, I guess, that I was having success. I'm not sure. But I know many people who have faced that. And we've heard throughout the show, we've heard physical trauma, we've heard financial trauma, we've heard racism, we've heard lack of support from family members, we've heard every single story, discrimination, we've heard of so many. And I think the key is, as you mentioned, Ashley, is to draw strength from that. We've seen people like Mohamed turn what could have been the most terrible tragedy into the biggest gift, and now a channel for his company, the VESSOL, which allows and helps people to facilitate change, and he supports them through that process. So I think the question is, how do you use the difficulties that you faced as a function later on in life? And because of the difficulties personally that I faced coming up in the workforce, without question, now I'm a better leader because of those things. I will never allow my team to be targeted. I will never allow them to feel like they're hurt, or like their voices shouldn't be heard, or they're not protected. I will do everything in my power to ensure that they are. And it makes me a much better leader because of the difficult things that I faced earlier. So I think that's something we've seen time and time again.
I think the most successful people know how to embrace turbulence, right? Like, I always try and figure out, how do I not be so surprised when these challenging setbacks happen? Expect it, because you're doing something unusual. You're driven, you're making big things happen. It's not going to just wave your, wand and all of a sudden you have all of your dreams right in front of you. It's going to be stops and starts. You're going to bump into some amazing people and some not so amazing people. So it's all of these learnings. It's all a part of your story and your growth and development.
Absolutely. And I think specific to Rebecca, I really admire her strength. I think she is such a strong person, and we've seen her incredible designs and we've seen the impact. I mean, my goodness, when she exploded on the scene, she was, a household name seemingly overnight, and had worked so hard to get there. And when you hear the things that she's endured, from sleeping on people's couches to the highs and lows of success to supply chain issues to COVID, I mean, my goodness, what that did to the business community. You can only imagine in a moment's notice when you've been, selling things in physical stores and you have to all of a sudden become an e-commerce master. I mean, what an incredible challenge. But Rebecca, like the other people that we have spoken to, does not give up. She does not give up. And she is so strong and so poised. And she has, I know we referenced it, this sort of like badassness. And her designs reflect that. She's got studs on her bags. And, I feel like she's a rock star in a way that you don't always see. And it's very unique to her. And she really brings that kind of attitude and rebellion to everything that she does. And I just feel proud to get to know her better and understand her story more.
Couldn't agree more.
So Mohamed Massaquoi was our first episode. His story is all about turning tragedy into triumph. You guys will hear all about it when you watch the episode. He's one of the most amazing people I have ever met, and he's why we opened this whole series with his story. Mohamed basically came from very little humble beginnings. He had immigrant parents and decided he wanted to play in the NFL. He had an incredible football career throughout his college years and into the NFL. And then pretty quickly after retiring, lost his hand in a tragic ATV accident. You can only imagine what that means to a child of humble beginnings, but B, an athlete and somebody who was a football superstar, an icon. That's such a massive trauma and difficulty and shift in your identity. And Mohamed not only endured that, but now is shining as brightly as ever and has a company that helps other companies and businesses and people cope with change called the VESSOL. So tune in, listen and learn. Check out this clip from Mohamed.
Vulnerability, you don't want to reveal that part of yourself. And it's not until you really just stop and you go attack that thing head on to start to heal that you can move forward. And specifically as it relates to my hand, you have to think refugee parents, very humble beginnings, the significance of a hand that can really change the trajectory of your family's life, going to college and playing sports at an elite level and getting resources. And so it's a very much a part of my life and my life story. And to have that part of me gone is very traumatic. But here's the thing that you start to learn. People aren't one-dimensional. It's not like you were just predisposed to be a professional athlete. You're just predisposed, to be in business. You're just predisposed to doing marketing or PR or, food or whatever the case may be. And so that's when you start to lean into more parts of yourself and say, who am I? And that's why your backstory gives you more of a reference point as to it starts to fill in some of the blanks of who you are. And when you know who you are, then it's like, okay, I can draw from this part of myself. I can draw from that part of myself. I can draw from this part of myself. And I feel more comfortable going because now I know at the other side, I have other aspects of me that can function at a high level as well. And that's a process. It's not a week. It's not it could take, the transition could take, years. But you're making progress all along. And I'm still a work in progress, honestly, because I've continuously developed parts of myself. I continue to learn different things where I'm more confident and I can charge for it more. And so it's ever evolving, honestly.
You know that phrase, Ashley, where people say your presence is a gift? Mohamed, he's one of those people, Ashley, that just being around him, I don't know if you felt this, you sitting with him, but every time I speak to him, the only way I describe him to other people is that he's an angel.
He's magic. It's like, I agree that 1 to 2 hours we had with him, I left and I was my mood, everything about myself was lifted in such a positive place for the remainder of the day. He just has such a strong spirit and the power of positive thinking rings true with Mohamed. I just think he is such a gift to this world.
Absolutely. What a special person. And just a bit more about his story you guys will hear in the episode. But Mohamed comes from immigrant parents and went on to have this incredible football career playing in the NFL. And right after, around when he retired, he lost his hand in a tragic ATV accident and has this incredible now robotic hand. He's amazing. And he took that challenge and turned it into what is now a company. He runs a company called the VESSOL, which helps major businesses cope with change. And he is one of the best counselors. I mean, you talk about you go through something difficult and you need your cheerleaders. Mohamed is the person that I think of the many, many people that I know would be on the short list of folks that I would call if something really, really difficult happened to try to give me some counsel on how to go through that, because he's done it as beautifully as you can ever imagine.
I also think it's interesting how he talks about in the episode that we're all multidimensional, right? None of us are one way or in one swim lane. And I think that's important because I don't know, as human beings, sometimes we're like, no, I need to be defined. Who am I? A business leader? Am I a mother? And I think what he's saying is that our worlds can sort of come together, or different passions or responsibilities can actually blend together into the unique version of you. And we all have different sides to us. It's okay to have mixed feelings on things. It's okay to maybe not have a point of view on a specific topic and just be open-minded to, all the different possibilities. So I think Mohamed, with his accident, realizing, wait, I have other great strengths that I can lean into. And maybe my new hand is a part of my story and my differentiation, which I have so much respect for this guy.
Yeah, he's truly an amazing person. And to see how he's adopted his identity with his hand, is so cool. I mean, people stop him when you're with him all the time and just say like, what is that? It's so cool. It looks incredible. And the way I remember him telling us the story, the way that he approached that was like, if I'm going to have this prosthetic, I want it to be the best and the coolest. And, he's just someone who I look up to. I think we all can look up to so much and learn from. And he's also another person who really honed in on identity. So in this clip specifically and throughout the episode, he talked about learning about your past to sort of help you understand who you are and determine your decisions in the future. And both him and Ashley Longshore and a few other people really honed in on that. Know who you are, not comparing yourself to other people. Your unique superpowers are the thing that are going to determine your ability to have great success, and that you're the only person who has that story and who has that perspective and who has those unique qualities. So not being ashamed of them or trying to fit into another box, but rather honing them and owning them and bringing them to the marketplace as your whole self.
The other thing is, the importance of owning your story. What do you want your story to be? At the end of your life, what do you want people to say about you? What is your purpose? How have you made impact? Big or small, but it's really almost working backwards to say, what is the vision that I have for my life, my company, my team, my family, and then building plans to help you actually activate that vision and live your purpose simultaneously, right? That's how we become successful in life and business. It starts with a bold vision of what you want.
Absolutely. And another example of taking something that's really difficult and turning it into what is now for him a huge part of who he is, a huge piece of his strength, and also his company. It comes from the difficulty and everything that he learned through that. So, my goodness, what a story of resilience.
Another one of these.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for our fourth episode, we had a close friend of mine, DJ Mick. He's amazing. He's not only a DJ, but he's an amazing entrepreneur. He's always up to something new. He just released a children's book not that long ago called D is for DJ. That is just the cutest thing you can imagine. Mick grew up in Ohio and decided that he wanted to play around with some turntables when he went to college, and really honed in on that skill and became incredible, and has since DJ'd all over the world. I met him in Cannes a couple of years ago, actually, and he was DJing on like the hottest parties there. He had DJ'd for Jay-Z and Beyonce and for the Obamas, and opening up for the Brooklyn Nets. And he's just such a cool, interesting person. And now he's an advisor and consultant and runs all of these other companies as well. So Mick is such a multidimensional person that really shows us how to bring creativity into business. And he taught us so much. Check out this clip.
I was really driven on being a really amazing provider for my kid, but now, like I alluded to earlier, but I think I also was sabotaging my mental and physical and emotional health. That was a huge thing for me. I don't know if that's like a failure per se, because I'm still here and everything turned out okay. But like, if I could go back and do it again, I would have probably pumped the brakes slightly in hopes the car stays alive a little bit longer. And, thankfully the pandemic gave me that opportunity to do that. But, I do think that I was overworking myself, and a lot of it was out of necessity. And, that's a story that's not really publicly shareable. But, I'm not going to do that anymore. Right. And so it's about like, I need to be here for the long game. My kid's 5, 6 years old. I need to be around when he's 50. Right. So that means I got to be around when he's like 90 something. When I'm 90 something. And so not sleeping, traveling crazy, overworking myself without, putting in the safeguards I need for my personal sanity that's how that second half of my life is going to go.
I love this episode because Mick addresses mental health head on, right? It's like we can't keep burning the candle at both ends, as we've all experienced. At some point, it's just we realize it's unsustainable. So I love this episode because he talks a lot about his, back-to-back DJ gigs and traveling all over the world and not putting himself first. And, that saying, put the oxygen mask on first, which is so important. And, something I think we can all think about and work on is, what is the winning rhythm that helps you be your best self, your most successful in life and career? It's a formula. We can't do all things. One thing we tell a lot of our clients at Franklyn West is pick 3 to 4 key passion areas. What are those 3 to 4 things that you can really do well, that fill your tank, that give you the fuel you need to be successful in your different roles and obviously for yourself, and really make tough choices of what you no longer can focus on? So that hyper prioritization, I think is very clear in this episode. Is it family, what physical, mental well-being and career? Is it community and friendship? Is it your spirituality? Really putting that puzzle piece together, I promise, can help you to create that winning rhythm that is sustainable over a lifetime.
I love that so much, Ash. And I think also Mick gives us a very real window into what the high pace of successful people looks like. And I can speak somewhat firsthand to what his schedule has been at crazy times. And also just through, seeing his Instagram, as all of you guys can see, it is planes, trains, and automobiles. I mean, it is literally all over the map. And he's an amazing dad and now has a beautiful new wife. And they've got a great life. And he's had to figure out how to find the balance between those two things. And when you have a sort of insatiable drive or something that you want to achieve, I think it's healthy to understand, and Mick and other people have told us this, the volume of work and time that takes far exceeds your expectations. I think Ash and I could, you see, she's nodding her head. I never expected that I would have to do, and knowing Ashley's career firsthand, that she would have to do the volume of stuff that we've had to do to build. And if you have to course correct within that, you have things like COVID that took us all sort of off our path. The additional volume that then gets thrown on top of that is significant, and a family is significant. These things are big, big things that take a lot of time and energy as people. So figuring out, to Ashley's point, how do you prioritize within that and find the right, I mean, maybe balance is the wrong word. I don't know many people who are really, really successful who have great quote unquote balance, but I love how Ashley used the word rhythm. And what are your sources of energy and your sources of rejuvenation that allow you to sustain, but then also understanding that whatever your ambition is probably going to take you twice as much time and energy, maybe 3, 4, 5 times as much time and energy as you expect, I think is a healthy lesson for all of us to take away from these guests.
And the other lesson is our careers are a marathon, not a sprint, right? So you have to make the decision, when am I putting my foot on the accelerator? When am I slowing things up, right? Like personally, my first 10 to 15 years of my career was foot on the accelerator. It was certainly a top 1 to 2 priority item for me, right? Which is, there is some sacrifice there. I didn't get to attend all my friends' weddings or, all of the school activities. I was never class mom and probably never will be, but that was a choice I made that is now paying off, where I can have a much more holistic rhythm of family and friendships and exploring my other passions like interior design and fashion and style, right? And travel. But man, my first 10 to 15 years, there was a lot of sacrifice. So, I just spoke at the Ole Miss graduation as their commencement speaker. And all I could think about is guys, stay one step ahead now, get ahead now, your first 10 years before the kids and all the things. And it'll pay off in the long run. So just making those choices of, when is my foot on the accelerator? When can I slow up a bit? Knowing that it's a long period of time in which you're building and scaling your career.
Yeah. And, I know firsthand from Kev's experience, he never went to a school dance, not in his entire life. There's actually a lot of things that he didn't get to experience and go through. So I think it's healthy for us to understand that there's a massive degree of sacrifice If there are certain things that you want to achieve, there's a massive amount of hard work. But if it matters enough to you that, to your point, Ashley, sometimes front loading that and working really hard on that in the first chapter of your career is a really important thing. But then also having the milestones, and I think Mick taught us this really beautifully in this episode. He talks about sort of his 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Also having these moments where you sort of stop and reevaluate. And COVID has been that for many, many people. We've talked about different traumatic or difficult experiences that pop up and might put you on a different path. But I think listening to those is very, very important, because the issue is when you plow through them, that's where you run the risk of burning out or getting yourself into a position where, you're really in an unhappy circumstance versus being attuned to how you feel and sort of the messages that you're getting from the marketplace. And when can you graduate from 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0? And there's different levels of empowerment that come with that as you build success. So I thought Mick taught us a lot of very realistic lessons about that and helped us to sort of envision these different phases of our life in very distinct phases. I thought that was cool.
And the COVID pivot, right? That's a whole episode in itself that I think Mick really brought up, where there is always opportunity to pivot, right? If you're ever in a specific job or, in a specific relationship, it doesn't have to be that way forever. In fact, sometimes those skills are transferable to other roles or even industries, right? You might decide to take all of your corporate experience and launch your own company, which is what I did during the pandemic, and it has incredibly paid off. So I think Mick is a great example of like being okay to pivot into different businesses, careers. And I think that is a really important skill that even Rebecca Minkoff, with the fact that she's so adaptable, that's another common theme with all of our folks who joined.
Absolutely. Well, that was super fun. It's so amazing to go back and rewatch some of this content. I mean, I learn something from these people every single time we watch, and there's so much to sort of dissect and learn. So I hope you guys had fun. We're doing a second part of this in a couple of weeks, so be sure to check it out.
All right, guys, you know where to find us at theimpossiblepodcast.com and all of the usual places: Spotify, Instagram, Apple Music. Check us out and let us know what you think.